You got it.
Hey guys, it is Greg at the Vinyl Rundown. We have a very special guest with us today. It is Michael Muller, who is a guitar player, composer, recording artist with Deutsche Grammophon. He's got a brand new record out. We're going to talk about that. Michael is here in Los Angeles, uh, not too far from me. We have gotten together a few times. We've met in what we call the vinyl community. So I'm just going to say, hey, Michael, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Greg. Nice to be here.
Great. I usually write a little intro paragraph about you, and something weird happened this morning that I didn't tell you about yet, but
Okay.
I'm going to share it with you if the window is open. So I went to Google your website so I could have it on screen, which I'll do later. And of course, Microsoft just started generating AI text for me. So here's what AI
Okay.
text said. You're famous enough that AI knows who you are. And this is pretty concise. Michael A. Muller, known for his work as co founder of the ensemble Balmarea. Did I pronounce that right? Balmarea?
Ray. Yeah,
That Ray, I keep Balmarea,
it's
has
okay.
recently delved into compositional exploration with his project Mirror Music. This album is available worldwide digitally via Deutsche Grammophon since March 1st, 2024, and a deluxe limited vinyl edition was released on March 15th. It goes on and on. Mirror music is a study in reflection existing in a space between the darkly occluded and atmospherically spacious. I think I'll leave it at that for now, but
Not
that's
bad.
it's not bad,
We'll take it.
and at the fact that you're famous enough to be on AI, and it uses all those words, darkly occluded and contemporary avant-garde, ambient, sonorous, modular synthesize. I don't know if you need interviewers anymore when AI can pretty much get the job done.
There's no nuance though.
Well, they
Misses the
use some
human
pretty
the human
pretty
touch.
big words. Yeah, I'm giving you the human touch today, and some humans are good, and some are just average. So anyway, Michael Muller. Initially, I thought of you as a guitar player, and this record is really way beyond guitar player.
Yeah.
Uh, it has you doing a lot of different roles. So, can you just tell us a little bit about this record and your role as not just a guitar player but composer, other? Tell us.
hmm Yeah. As a player, instrumentalist, guitar and fretted instruments are my kind of forte and the thing that I feel most comfortable at least as a compositional tool. This is my second solo record, Mirror Music, and
Hmm.
when I started off, I had just gotten a Rhodes organ, and I also recently got one of the new Mellotrons that they just started reissuing. And I kind of put the guitar down and kind of really excited about those two instruments. Around the same time, a friend of mine let me borrow an Oberheim synthesizer, which is an analog synth from the late '70s. So I spent a lot of time just in my studio where I am now, just kind of experimenting with tones and trying to, just as an exercise of exploring sound and being curious, and started coming up with some interesting things that tonally and melodically kind of all fit in the same world. So
I want to come back to that, but ask you about
yeah.
these instruments. First of all,
hmm
Rhodes makes the Fender piano, but they make an organ too that I don't know about.
yeah, that's what it is. The 73 key Rhodes organ,
That's
which
what I think of as an electric piano. It's got the little metal bars inside.
yeah, exactly. Yep,
Okay,
same thing.
okay. Fender, I
Uh,
call that a Fender Rhodes, so just want to make
yes,
sure there's not an
mine's
organ
actually
out there.
no. Well, mine's actually not a Fender. It was when I'm not sure when that change took place, but at some point the Fender wasn't there yet or had gotten taken away.
Hmm.
Anyway, I was exploring with those and came up with a bunch of ideas and kind of a lot of sketches and realized I had enough that could constitute a full album. Um, and I really wanted to collaborate with some different voices that I couldn't play myself, and so I started taking the pieces and culling them down, and it ended up into about 10 or 11 pieces that made it on the album, 10 to be precise. But uh, I had the idea to invite some other people to play on top of the compositions I had made, because they're minimal and simple, but some of them needed a little more, needed an extra voice or a different kind of texture or timbre. So it ended up being that each track is a different person playing another instrument on top of what I created.
There's 10 tracks, and you just have them named as numbers, right? As opposed to song titles, which is fine. Instrumental music is so hard to naming tunes is kind of a exercise
in classical music, it's just the number usually, unless it was for a specific piece for a ballet or whatever. But
none of these were commissioned by any rich European patrons, so they're not named after them. I want to get into some of those individual tracks, but I'm still intrigued by what you said about Mellotron. Did you say there's a new Mellotron?
They make a digital Mellotron now, so it's based on the same. The original one where every note was a different instruments were samples. So it's the same idea as that, except they're digital samples. So they're actually physical keys that are made of, with wood that are triggering the sample from the inside. And it's the same thing. So the original loop was 7 seconds. So if you hold down a note or a chord after 7 seconds, it just cuts off, which is kind of
it cuts off to nothing. It doesn't loop around and start over again.
No, you have to maybe there's a way to do that. I haven't figured that out.
Maybe that's how the Mellotron originally worked.
I've never played an original one. I think it may be just how it is. But anyway, I've found a workaround since my work is mainly ambient, atmospheric. I use this a very long reverb with a long decay, so I can hold it and it blossoms out, and I can move to a different chord or a different note, and so I circumvent that hard cutoff a little bit.
I found a loophole. That's a really stupid joke.
Wow.
We're gonna edit that out later. Well, the Mellotron is really iconic. It was used by people like the Beatles and
exactly.
And I think it's really cool that you're going sort of back and looking at old technology, new technology. When you write, are you like writing sheet music or chords, or when you're really just composing as you go in the workstation?
Yeah, when you listen to this, there's nothing that's super complex. It's fairly simple, fairly minimal in the voices that are being portrayed, but also just it's not highly melodic. There is some melody, but it's more about the space as a soundscape. It's more about the kind of the headspace and the atmosphere I'm trying to create, more than like an overt melody or something you can whistle.
Well, that's so I guess you're comfortable using the word ambient. Because it is so hard to genreify music these days, and your music does kind of go across different genres, and then you're on a classical label, which we'll talk about later, because that's very interesting. Anyway, of course, I lost my train of thought. Oh, so what you're doing is extremely layered, right? It's like I don't know, dozens or 50 or 100 different tracks going at once. Not that you need to quantify it, but this leads into the issue that maybe it's impossible or difficult to perform live. Was there any discussion or ability to try to perform any of this live?
Right. So most of the tracks on my performance, my contribution to each is one instrument, and sometimes there's a few layers that are overdubbed, and then the other instrumentalist performs the various instruments. But yeah, to perform it live in a compelling way, I would have to have at least 3 people, I would think, maybe 4. So this is something I've been thinking about. But honestly, I'm more interested in creating this music to be a more personal, experiential thing for each listener. Yes, there is a definite, upside to experiencing music in a certain space and feeling the sound waves touch you and see someone play a note or play a bow, a cello, and you hear the immediate impact. So I have to figure that out.
I wasn't really thinking it from that point of view. I was thinking from the point of view of artists today. monetizing music that's streaming is so difficult, and so many artists say, well, the only way you can uh, pay the rent is to play a lot live. And I know your other band played a live somewhat frequently, so I'm just wondering if that was part of the mix or not. If it's not, a lot of great records exist as records, and they're a recording and a studio production as opposed to a live performance. That perfectly cool.
I've never played live just on my own. I'm not opposed to it, but
that's intimidating.
Yeah, the first record I did was by myself was in 2019, and with that I did a tour, but it was more of like almost like a museum setting where I had an audio installation with different visuals projected, and the album was playing, and there were some other elements. It's more of like an experience and like at your own pace, and it's not. They were all free, and so that I'm more interested in kind of like a sound installation and the experience more than
that's
like
fascinating.
Grabbing
are any of those available on video? Because I wasn't aware that you did that.
I don't think so.
Maybe not. Okay, well,
yeah.
Well, next time. All right, great. So you wanted to let's talk about some of the specific tracks on here. I don't necessarily think we have to go through all 10.
Sure.
But if you want to grab a few that jump out at you, and since I can't see the writing on the back of this, it's so small for my old eyes.
It is quite small.
And of course, you just your tracks are. It's like 6 through 10, 1 through 5. You don't even list the tracks.
Yeah, I don't know why I did that. It just felt right. It just felt like it wasn't about. I wasn't trying to say a specific thing. I was really moved when I was making these pieces, and especially when the other voices got introduced on each one, that I felt like it was more about the world that was built rather than like trying to explicitly say something. So that's one thing I love about it, that it's totally open-ended and approachable from there's a little bit of something for everyone, I hope, and anyone can get into it.
Well, the track listing that's very unusual, I think, lends itself to the idea that just put it on and listen to the whole thing, as opposed to, I like the song on the number 3. It's you're not presenting it that way, even though there are discrete pieces. There's a flow to it, beginning to end, and really the whole genre of ambient music is more about the experience as opposed to the song.
And I did choose it. I sequenced the album. I placed the tracks in a very specific order, and I spent a lot of time thinking about how they flowed together. And I think there is a reward if you listen to it in whole, but kind of like Eno did when he coined ambient back in the whatever that was, the 70s. Some of you know the story, but he was laid up in a hospital, or I think he was laid up at home and couldn't get out of bed, and a friend came over and put on a record but didn't change the volume on the system, and it was barely audible. And he realized this music served this function in the background, but it was still serving this beautiful, it made the time so memorable and like accentuated this moment. So it does work in that way. So it does work as a background. It does work if you're working or if you're doing yoga or meditating or whatever, but it also does reward if you put the record on and sit there and actively, intentionally listen to it, and kind of I'm hoping people can kind of get lost in that space.
I don't think a lot of artists would admit what you just said. Maybe ambient ones would, but most people say, I don't want my music to be background music. My music is foreground music, and there's a melody and there's blah blah blah. But I have the LP. I have a couple of nice systems here. I listen to it purposely pretty loud because I wanted to make sure I was capturing all those layers, and I felt like if you had it at a lower volume, that's one experience, but fairly loud. Like I really wanted to be able to hear, there's all these different layers, instrumentation. I want to know what's going on inside there. So it does lend itself to both types of listening. Okay, so where were we? I'm making notes here, and I got a lot of we're going in so many different directions, but you said something that I kind of forgot about. I knew the Eno story,
Hmm.
And on my channel, I'm always looking for interesting video ideas. The idea that people's entire art form came out of a sickness or an injury, and
Hmm.
they were in the hospital or laid up and doing nothing for 1 month, 6 months, a year, and like this injury changed the world.
Right.
I was working on a list of those, which I've lost the list. I can't even think of any now. But Ina, that's an important one. If you have any of you listeners out there, by the way, I forgot to pull up the video chat because maybe people are saying things to us.
Oh yeah.
Uh, so if you can think of any of those for my video that I may or may not do in a couple of years.
There must be some from that came from being locked down in the pandemic of artists trying to figure out a new way to express themselves through being isolated.
The last big interview I did was this LA jazz musician and composer named Vinny Golia. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I haven't.
He's at Cal Arts. He already had 150 releases to his name.
Okay.
He's
fairly prolific.
He's fairly prolific, and during the lockdown, he came up with the idea of doing this 3-part opus, and each opus is between 10 and 15 hours long.
Wow.
It's like,
okay.
That's what happens when you're locked up in the pandemic. And I got through like 3 or 4 hours of it on Bandcamp. So check out the interview with Vinny Golia. He's collaborated a lot with Nels Klein and Alex Klein and a lot of LA people.
Yeah.
And his stuff is very filmic, cinematic, but he's also very free jazz. Just gets on the horn and wails. So anyway, there's probably a lot of great pandemic music that we will have to think about. Let's get back to you though.
Okay.
We got to talk about you. It's all about you, Michael. Did anyone call you Mike? I feel like you're a Michael.
Yeah, like my dad calls me Mike, my bandmate from Balmorhea. Kind of like my old friends call me Mike, but either one's fine.
We're Michael A. Muller. We gotta throw the A in there.
There's another person with my same name that is also a photographer that's pretty well known.
Right. We've always run into those. Since you mentioned Balmorhea, when I first saw this record, I thought, oh my God, is Balmorhea breaking up and he's going out on a solo? Is this one of these, behind the music MTV stories? Or I think I was way off with that assumption, but you're an artist. You happen to do this collaboration, and now you're still there. So I think that's maybe the more correct. There's no big change going on there that we need to know about.
No, not at all. Like I think I released one solo album previously in 2019, and a handful of singles and remixes and EPs and stuff. And my co-founder of Balmorhea, Rob, has 2 solo albums as well. So yeah, just kind of different voices and different
You're
things.
Just doing different projects. There's no big breakup, and you guys are still.
Yeah, we have a song coming out next week, actually. Yeah.
A song with a group on Deutsche Grammophon.
Yeah, it's just piano and guitar, but it's as Balmorhea.
Okay, good. I'm making notes again.
Yep.
So let's get back to the record. Is there significance to the title? And the title seems to go with the cover, Mirror. This is a mirror image. It can be viewed as positive or negative space.
Totally.
Tell me about both the title and the cover. If they go together, if they don't, that's fine.
Yes, you're right on with kind of 2 things converging.
I should do this.
There you go.
Not too close.
I had watched Tarkovsky's film The Mirror, and around the same time, I had read a poem by a contemporary American poet named Michael McGriff, where he's talking about the nature of mirrors. And I just started thinking about this idea of like a diptych of 2 things creating a single form in a way. Obviously someone in a mirror, but also the idea of mirror as a portal. And then I just, a local LA painter named John Zabawa, he does beautiful kind of minimal work like this. And I had met him, and we kind of hit it off. And I asked him if I could use use this for the cover, and he graciously let me. But this is actually the title of this original painting is called Stones 4. So he did a series of paintings that are meant to be stones that are kind of touching and converging. Very kind of simple.
Like stones number 4.
Right.
So it's the positive space of the blue is the stone.
Yeah.
But you can view it positive or negative.
I don't. Yeah, and it just kind of resonated with me when I saw it, especially after I met him, and he seemed to be cool with the idea, and I don't know, it just felt like it captures the music in some way. There's not like any grand backstory really other than that.
Well, that's and I'm not familiar with the film you mentioned. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, it's a very, very beautiful. It's not an easy watch, but a very rewarding watch.
Is that like which decade is that from?
I think it's from the 70s, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not 100% sure.
Keep my eyes out.
Tarkovsky.
Okay, so let's talk about, like I've been promising, to talk about some of the tracks.
Yeah.
Are there particular ones that jump out at you that you want to maybe go over because they're interesting collaborations or etc.?
Yeah, for sure. I tried to get a mix. For each piece, I had an instrument in mind, basically, or like a sound or a tone, or even like a frequency. So some of the stuff I did was darker and more low in scope. So to kind of balance that, I wanted something higher. Or a couple of them, I was like, oh, you know what? A human voice could be really nice on this, rather than, whatever XYZ instrument. There are 2 tracks that have vocals, both of which are friends of mine that have amazing voices. One of which is lyricless, so it's wordless vocals. Lisa McGee goes by Vestals. That's the 3rd track, Mirror 3. She's a mezzo-soprano, and I'd worked with her previously on a film score, a horror short film that I scored that she did a bunch of really haunting vocals and has an incredible voice, so she added vocals to that. That's just Rhodes and voice. And then the 8th track, Mirror 8, is a Polish composer, an artist named Hania Rani, and she sings. And originally, I was like, I want to just keep it instrumental with voice, but no lyrics. And I didn't really give much direction, but for hers, I was like, maybe let's keep it like wordless, instrumental, vocal. And she said, okay. And she sent back the first idea, and she's like, I was really compelled to write these lyrics and sing these words, and I was like, okay, great. And so it felt perfect. And subsequently, I've tried to figure out what I can tell most of it, and I've asked her, and she can't remember what it was either. She lost the sheet that she had written it down on. So if anyone knows what track 8, I got about half of it, but there's still a few things I don't know what she's saying. But it's not about that. It's about the world, right? It's about just kind of getting lost in there and coming to it from your own
experience. Exactly.
There's bass clarinet, there's electric guitar, there's 12-string guitar, there's modular synthesizer, there's Prophet synthesizer, there's pedal steel guitar, which was played by Chuck Johnson. Chuck Johnson is, I would say, kind of in line with Daniel Lanois's pedal steel playing, if you're familiar with that. Kind of on the more ambient, ethereal side. And Chuck actually helped me mix the record. He has a studio in Oakland, California. So we put the mixes were mostly there, but we sweetened them up through his outboard stuff and put it to a two-track 1/4-inch tape, which really gave a lot of warmth to the mixes before mastering.
So most of the record went through that analog process?
100% of it, yeah.
Wow, interesting. And I've got the analog version right here. Even though there is a lot of digital stuff in the input, but definitely there's a warmth there to analog that people are certainly rediscovering. Okay, the question I was just about to ask you, I forgot, so keep going.
I was going to say all of this stuff I recorded myself went through tube hardware. So there's a little bit of warmth, even though like the Mellotron is digital, obviously, and the Oberheim is digital, but they are analog circuits, and obviously the Rhodes is 100% analog.
Do you feel there's any pushback as an artist when if a label says, "Oh, analog's too expensive," or it's not clean enough, or did they not care, or it's all over the place. I'm
Uh,
assuming that analog is trying to push itself back in, and I'm wondering if there's
yeah,
resistance from the labels, or maybe not.
I don't really know. I think they just want the music to feel approachable and resonant, and they want to sell it, and they want people to stream it, and they want people to buy records. So,
It ends
but
up digital one way or the other.
it's true, and I will say. I mean, obviously, it was mastered digitally, so the tape was sent back to the computer and then mastered, but through again all valve tube based hardware through like the most exquisite system. This guy in Berlin named Zeno Mikore, he's mastered a lot of the stuff from Nils Fromm and Olafur Arnolds and Hania, and has a very, very deft ear for like the delicate, gentle nuance and dynamism between quiet and more loud parts. So it came out really well. It was pressed at Palace in Germany, and they did a great job. And I was pretty fastidious with my test pressing critique. So we went through a few rounds, and now it sounds really great. I'm really happy. It's pretty quiet, and
yeah, it is a good, very good sounding record. I've listened to it on a couple of different nice analog systems. One had tubes in it, one didn't. I'm not saying I necessarily noticed a difference, but I have two very different systems. But there's a lot of folks out there who haven't got to hear good tube sounding stuff. I helped my friend install a pretty expensive tube amp Macintosh last weekend, and we swapped out a pretty nice old receiver, and just the bloom in the room was like,
oh yeah,
as soon as we played it, he had such a smile on his face, like, oh my God, there's so much nuance and layer there that we weren't hearing before, and I'm jealous. But
something
anyway,
you can't really unhear, right? Once you've
it's
heard it.
like, oh my God, now
once you've heard what it can be, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit of an audiophile nut, and it's a very expensive hobby. So let's not dwell on that. So next question. Okay, I had two questions here. One is about film scoring, and the other one was about Deutsche Grammophon. Let's start with Deutsche Grammophon.
Okay.
When I first heard that someone I know is signed to like one of the biggest and most revered record labels in the world, I was like pretty excited for you. I was like, oh my God, Deutsche Grammophon. They've been around, I think, 100 years. But
125.
Yeah, they've been around forever. And but they have for most of that period, I thought, a reputation of being kind of stodgy, right?
Yeah.
We're putting out Beethoven and Brahms and Von Karajan and standard repertoire. So they've gotten into new repertoire lately.
Right.
But tell us about how you and Deutsche Grammophon got together. How's the experience been, etc.
Yeah, I'm still pinching myself as well. With it's pretty crazy. It never, I think it was about 10 years ago, maybe a little more. A man named Christian Badzura, he's like the A&R manager of Deutsche Grammophon, was hired. They signed Max Richter,
and call him Richter, but I guess it's Richter. He did the Sleep 8 Hours, and he's got a lot of
exactly.
It's almost ambient classical music.
Totally, yeah. He's scored a lot of films and TV series. That was, I believe. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't really know all the details, but that was sort of a foray into what they actually call the new repertoire. So it's Johan Johansson, who is a famous film composer, Dustin O'Halloran, Hildur.
We have to slow down on these names, Michael.
Sorry. Johan Johansson was an Icelandic composer. He passed away a few years ago.
Passed away, passed away very young, and I was just starting to understand listen to his music. Anyway,
he's incredible. He's actually my favorite film composer. Johan is, and a girl named Hildur, who's an Icelandic, primarily a cellist, but she did the Joker remake with Joaquin Phoenix, and she did Chernobyl. I think she actually won in the same year. She won an Oscar, a Grammy, and an Emmy.
Wow,
So,
I knew she was nominated for the Oscar, but yeah, Hilder, and then an unpronounceable last name, I think.
Gutnadottir or something like that.
Yeah.
And then there's
Something
another pianist, an American guy named Dustin O'Halloran, who's
Mhm.
scored a lot of things. And he just released a new album the other day. And a Dutch pianist called Joep Beving, Joep, who's this
Joep.
just very
Yeah.
minimal, nice solo piano stuff. So this is kind of there's a handful of others. Roger Eno, Brian's brother.
Mhm.
They've signed to Moby now, who's like the '90s kind of artist. Guy
You-
called Clark. There's a few others.
You named two Icelandic people right off the bat.
Yeah.
And then there's a third Icelandic person who's not really new music, but I know you've collaborated with.
Oh yes. We can never forget Vikingur Olafsson.
Vikingur, not Viking, Vikingur Olafsson. I have his record around here somewhere. I didn't bring it to show, but you've collaborated with him on a couple of things. So for those who don't know, he is late 30s. He is like the new he's the new thing in classical piano, and his new Bach Goldberg Variations, I think, is
right.
Fantastic.
Which he's performing in LA in May. I don't know if you'll go at the LA Phil at Walt Disney Hall. Yeah,
that was on my list.
It should be good. I saw him. He did some Mozart stuff last fall or last spring, summer. It was. I mean, undeniably, he has to be one of the most skillful pianists that's alive in the world that I've ever seen, at least.
I would certainly like to see that. I knew it was coming up. I didn't know exactly when, but you've collaborated with more than once.
Yeah, so he's very big into like having reworks or remixes made from his material, and we did one as Balmarais first. That was from a Rameau piece, and then I did one about a year ago that was from his album called From Afar, which was a Schumann piece that I kind of reimagined. And
so those are you redoing his stuff,
right?
As opposed
to that was just solo piano, so it ends up being taking some pieces and manipulating the piano part, and then adding some other new things to kind of create a new composition in essence.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I've heard a couple of those. I don't remember them all, of course, but yeah, you've sent me some of that stuff.
Yeah.
So we're back to Deutsche Grammophon, how they have sort of slowly burst onto the new repertoire scene, and you named some of the artists, and then you then ended up working with a gentleman who sort of put a lot of them on the map, I guess.
Yeah, or I mean, it's just he's sort of Christian Padzura kind of spearhead this idea to not morph, but bridge the gap between the standard traditional repertoire of the old catalog and, kind of burgeoning new classical music or contemporary classical music, and very interested and totally open-minded and very excited about music. I mean, Deutsche Grammophon was on like a dream list of something I would ever consider, just from the works of Max and Johann and Hilder. And I think we got signed as Balmarais just because of our very almost like American twist on kind of like contemporary instruments, classical instruments, piano and strings and winds mixed with guitars and synthesizers and things in a minimal way. So I think that was something they didn't really have. It was pretty Eurocentric. Now it's spread out a lot more. And then from that, we've worked with them now for 5 years about, have become friends with them. And so anytime I'm in Berlin or anytime one of their team members happens to be in Los Angeles, we always will meet up, and we've become, actual friends outside of the working relationship. And I had this album that I've been working on, and it's been finished over a year, and I just sent it to them, and they really liked it. And I wasn't expecting them to say they wanted to release it. I was just sending it to them just to say, hey, I've been working on this, like, check it out. And they're like, we love this, we want to put it out. So I was like, I'm in, let's do it.
Wow. Yeah, I understood that you'd put this out as a solo record. You created it as a solo record, not really knowing if or who its home would be.
Yeah, I talked to one smaller independent label here in the States that seemed interested, and I was like, maybe I should just put it out myself. Like, I don't know. I didn't really have a hard plan. I wasn't trying to get a record deal or anything. But I was very pleasantly surprised they were so interested in it and liked it so much. And they did actually acquire my previous album too, and so they re-released that just digitally. And I've had the opportunity to do a couple other reworks, one for Vikinger and a couple other little one-off tracks here and there over the past couple of years with them.
Nice. So I want to change the topic to film scoring. When I listen to the record, that's one thing. One impression I had is this is filmic, cinematic. What's whatever the right word is, you know. And so you've had stuff used in movies, but then you are also composing specifically. Yes. So tell us a little bit about both of those worlds.
In the Balmorhea work, we had, I think maybe 2009 or 10, we started having our songs used in films, friends that are directors or friends in film school, just using our music here and there. And then we started getting some bigger placements in some more notable films and shows. And we've done, I think, 2 or 3 feature-length films as Balmorhea, a few documentaries, tons of short films, some original scores for some advertising campaigns and things. So that was a world like I'm comfortable with and understand a little bit.
Well, remind us of the big breakout song that you had. Was it Poland or something?
It was Turkey. Yeah, we had a song that was in a Turkish film that did really well. And for some reason, there's a banjo in the song, and the banjo melody and the violin do this kind of unison pizzicato and this little banjo line. And there's something that I don't know if it's innately Turkish, but there's something that has this kind of like Middle Eastern scale, the way that the scale works, that is very reminiscent of something that must be a traditional motif in Turkish music that for whatever reason that song really resonated. And we've played there, I think, 5 times now, and it's always sold out, and like it's kind of strange. So if you look up, that's our most listened to song on Spotify.
What's the name of the song and the film?
The film is called Delibal, Delibal, which I believe is honey. It means like it's the word for honey, I think, in Turkish, something like that. I've actually never seen it. And then the song is called Remembrance.
Remembrance.
So,
okay. If you're out there in YouTube land and you look up the song Remembrance, you will see a zillion covers of it by musicians. So that's, to me, you've really made it when people on YouTube are covering your song. So, and you're big in Turkey. The funniest thing is, it's
always funny when someone reaches out and asks for the tabs or what the chords, I was like, it's literally 6 notes. It couldn't be simpler. It's kind of funny.
Maybe I'll make a video on the guitar lesson because my channel needs a boost. So don't hold me to that.
Yeah, so through that, I mean, so the last 10 years or so, we've been pretty active in the landscape of trying to pitch ourselves.
Dozens of appearances, not just a couple. We've been in lots of stuff.
Yeah. We've had a lot of our music used in big ads, like Super Bowl ads and things like that.
Super Bowl ads.
Yeah.
Tell me about that one.
We had a song. I think it was a different song. It was for a Toyota ad. This was in 2014, 15, something like that. I can't remember.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
Before Deutsche Grammophon.
Yes.
Toyota. Wow, that's big time.
Yeah. So those are harder to get these days. There's just so much competition, and with the rise of music libraries and AI, it's even harder.
People are realizing that that's one way to monetize your content is to get placements, and you got so many people producing shows now, Netflix and all these different. Yeah. So I think there's more work and more opportunity out there, but also more competition. Have you been on any Netflix shows? Because I'm a Netflix person.
We had a song. It's called, I think, is it called Afterlife with Ricky Gervais? I can't remember.
I've seen some of that.
Maybe this is 2018 or something, 19. I think we had a song in that.
He dies and comes back or something like that.
Yeah, I've actually never seen it. So anyway, I started making my first solo song came out in 2018, I think. So since then, that's something I've also obviously been interested in doing, in both getting the songs licensed for TV and film, but also to compose original music for. So that's something I actively am doing, and I love doing. It's like that's actually the most fun I have, is being just trying to figure out the exact right expression of music to go over a scene. It's so fun. So I've just finished a feature score, which I co-composed with Jimmy Laval, who has a project called The Album Leaf, which has been going for over 20 years. It's kind of minimal electronic, some acoustic elements, violin and guitar, but electronic stuff, instrumental. We co-composed for a feature film that just premiered at South by Southwest a couple weeks ago, and it's called Things Will Be Different. It's kind of a sci-fi time travel thriller, kind of very, very heady and intellectual, very interesting. Gets into the quantum mechanics of dimensionality and things like that. It's fun. So hopefully
that sounds right up your alley.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, yeah,
dark you don't
kind
do
of
songs
textural.
about "I love you, baby." Oh yeah, you do songs about molecular quantum mechanics. I know you're on a different level. So is that a movie that is going to be theatrical, or they're still trying to get it sold? I mean,
yeah, they're trying to get it sold. I hope so. Yeah, it's playing at a few other festivals over the next couple months, but hopefully, and it's really well done.
Any name actors that I would know? Not that I know anybody from the last 20 years. Probably.
There's the woman lead is named Riley Dandy. She's been in a handful of stuff, but none that I was familiar with, actually. It's really great. It's a beautiful, beautiful film, and I got to go to Austin for the premiere, and so the whole team was there. It was great to be a part of that.
You got to go to South by Southwest. That's cool. Go back to this other project you mentioned, Album Leaf. You implied that it was a score, but you also implied that it's been around for 20 years. Explain to me what that's all about.
Yes, so Album Leaf is a single guy named Jimmy Laval, exceptional multi-instrumentalist. Also known for his work on the roads, but also as a drummer and like an expert like beat and electronic programming, rhythmic programmer. He was a recording artist. He was on Sub Pop and is now on a label called Network. And I followed him for a long time. I saw him play in '99, I think. Even was the first time I saw him. And we recently connected here in Los Angeles and have become friends. And he asked me to jump on this film with him. And we also did a remix for him as Balmeret that just came out about a month ago.
I got to check that out. I learn a lot every time I talk to you. More stuff that I can handle. Okay, great.
And more in the future with him.
And you're just getting started. I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, but now that you've smashed onto the international scene with all this stuff, it's amazing. We're all very proud of you to have gone this far. Any other topics we should touch on? Because I think we're going to wrap up pretty soon. We're hitting an hour pretty soon, and it's almost time for lunch out here.
Oh yeah, it totally is. I will. This, like you said, like the internet said. Obviously, it's digitally available. The vinyl just came out a few weeks ago, and if you order it from my Bandcamp, I physically pack it up.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot to do this.
Yeah.
I give the free advertising here.
There you go. That's the website.
I should have had that playing the whole time. And that really goes to your Bandcamp, I think, for the most part, right? Is that your own site or is that Bandcamp?
Yeah, that's the site, but the very first thing you see is a link to the vinyl. Yeah.
So a quick side topic. I don't know if you're aware, Bandcamp has gone through some real changes. They were bought by, I think, 2 different companies in the last 6 months. Do you know anything? Have you been affected at all from the artist side as to the changes at Bandcamp?
I don't really know, honestly. I don't really deal with it. So Deutsche Grammophon doesn't work with Bandcamp in any way digitally. So I'm just selling the vinyl through Bandcamp as a third party site.
Oh, so they don't want the downloads to go through Bandcamp.
Yeah, but all of my previous catalog with Balmaray is through that, but that's done through the
Mhm.
distribution company. I don't deal with that directly. So I don't honestly know how it really works that well.
Well, if you haven't been negatively affected, and that's good news, because
That I know of. Maybe half just don't
distribution
know.
companies, TuneCore,
Yeah.
DistroKid, Bandcamp have all been in the news a lot the last few months, and most of it's not good news. There's a lot of things that have really been negative for artists, and layoffs in staff and the financial squeeze, but luckily that might not be affecting you. Let me just check our comments. Oh, we do have a comment from Mike Parente at the Jazz Bums, and he's just
Mike. What's up,
saying
Mike?
hello. And I didn't see that. Oh yeah, you just did that recently. Mike Parente, this guy has
Mike's great.
encyclopedical knowledge of jazz and classical music. And someday I'll interview him on this show, or maybe he'll invite me on his show. All right. So yes, good guy. Where's he? Mike, where are you? I don't know. You're not in LA.
I don't know either.
I don't know where he is. I have no idea. Other Michael, I got two Michaels here. Michael Muller from Deutsche Grammophon, the new record Mirror out now. Mirror Music, not Mirror.
Mirror Music.
Mirror Music.
You can call it whatever you want.
Mirror Music on the Wall. This is the most beautiful album of all. Figure out which goes all directions. So thank you for stopping by on my channel, and encourage everybody to check out his music online and maybe pick up the LP. And I think we'll say goodbye.
That sounds good. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Cheers.
Okay. I've ended